back.
Thank you. I realized as everyone else introduced themselves in public comment, I'm out of practice. I didn't give my name and address. I know you all know who I am, but
That's my bad. I should have caught you.
you should have nailed me to the wall for it.
I should have caught you. So go ahead. So name and address for the record.
Jeffrey Bruckner, 60 Nicole Terrace. I just want to respond briefly to Councilman Kirsch's comments where he said that we should be looking at other taxing authorities for the increases. And I want to point out three differences. I don't know much about the county budget. I've never really been involved in it, but I was on the Board of Ed for the better part of 13 years. So I'm very familiar with that budget. And I want to say first and foremost, the Board of Ed does what I've always considered to be the only responsible way to go. Analogous to the roads that the township does, we have roofs and boilers that every 20 or 30 years have to be replaced, just like a road. You're not putting in new roads, you're replacing existing roads. That is not the type of item you borrow for. The Board of Ed pays for every single $1 million road and every single $800,000 boiler out of its current budget. They do not borrow for that amount, for those amounts. And that is what this council should be doing to the extent possible. I understand it's not always possible, and you do have the luxury of it being legal for you to borrow without having to get voter approval, which the Board of Ed does not have. But I think you abuse that privilege to the extent that you do it so much. Second of all, as a result of that, I mentioned earlier that your debt has gone up, and I have the numbers with me now, from 60 million to 72 million in the 8 years since the same format of reporting has existed from 2012 to 2020. During really important point, during that same period, the Board of Ed's debt was 47 million and is now 12.3 million. Over the last 8 years, the Board of Ed has almost paid off all of its debt. And when they finish in about, 2 or 3 years? When they finish paying off their debt, I believe it's in 2024, I may not have that exactly right, their debt service payments will fall off of the budget and taxes will go down significantly. That is fiscal responsibility. Yes, they're paying more now, but they're doing it so that they can pay debt down and down and down. And I fought hard for that when I was on the Board of Ed. And I didn't really have to fight that hard for it because everyone was on board with that, with paying down debt and being responsible. So the last comment I want to make in terms of the contrast between the Board of Ed and this body, Councilman Pedrosa, you talk about transparency. The Board of Ed has its January meeting, its February meeting, its March, or one of its January, one of its February, one of its March, and one of its April meetings has a budget presentation. The board secretary stands up and gives it anywhere from 10 to 30-minute presentation and details what's, I'll wrap up quickly, what's in and what's out. The board asks questions of him in public, in detail at all of those meetings. And then the public can come back and come up to the podium and respond to the questions that the Board of Ed asked. And that's all in addition to the official public hearing. The budget is a complete mystery until you guys put it out. And then we get one chance to stand up here and say things. We can't even ask questions because you haven't given your talk about what is in your comments until after we've had our say. It is not transparent. It is not progressive.